Try it now.
It's also theta.
Yeah, Carnival's 48.
It's just that. Yeah.
Can you drop that out?
Yeah.
Alright guys, we're about ready to get started, so if everyone could please take their seats, and candidates, you can step up to the stage. Thank you.
The news editor for the Mercury.
And I'm Valerie Perez, the news producer for UTD TV.
Welcome to the 2018 Student Government Debate, and thank you all for coming out. Today, the candidates' debate questions will be brought in by our student body as well as our staff members to help better inform the vote. To clarify, this is a pre-election debate so that can get a better understanding of each candidate's platform. The election will be held from March 28th to March 30th at utdallas.edu/vote.
We do have pizza for you guys. Everyone who shows us that you're following at least one of our social media platforms gets a piece for free.
For the first time in 2 years, we have a contested election between two tickets running for office. Presidential candidate Elon Kang and Vice Presidential candidate William McKiernan represent the Your Voice ticket, while Presidential candidate Eric Chen and Vice Presidential candidate Carla Ramazan represent the Catalyze ticket. During the debate, each ticket will be given 2 minutes to respond to the question, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal.
Before we begin, we want you guys to know that y'all can still send in your personal questions to the candidates to our Twitter account @UTD Mercury. We're going to select a few questions for the candidates later. All right, let's get started and have the candidates state their platform.
Hi, my name is Eric Chen. As I was so graciously introduced, I represent the Catalyze ticket. I am the presidential candidate for this ticket. Our ticket's platform is based around 3 ideas: sustainability, spirit, and community support. With spirit, first, we feel like every Comet here at UTD has they deserve to feel proud of going to UTD and calling themselves a Comet. With community support, we feel like student government as an organization really has a responsibility to establish effective means of communication, to be transparent with the student body about what's going on within our organization as well as within the administration. And with sustainability, we believe that the longevity of our projects is of the utmost importance. If our projects only stick around for a couple of years, they only have the potential to impact so many students. We need to ensure the sustainability of our campus as a whole and of our projects in order to impact the most students over the longest period of time and to make sure that every student is reached.
Hi all, my name is Elon Kang. I'm the presidential candidate for the Your Voice ticket, and our platform is built around one key idea, that government derives its power from the people, and that student government, therefore, derives its power from the students. So, our goal in student government is to begin inviting you, the student body, as individuals and as members of the many organizations that you're a part of, the Student Government Senate and committee meetings, And so here, students will have a better idea of how government works, how administration is contacted, how projects are put into action, and how they can be refined to better meet student needs and curtail student satisfaction.
Okay. Moving on to the first question, which will not feature a rebuttal. What motivated you to run?
To clarify, do you want each candidate from each ticket to respond to this, or do you want one candidate from each ticket to respond?
The vice presidential candidate or the presidential candidate can respond to the question, and each ticket will be given 2 minutes.
So I was motivated to run because I love UT Dallas and I love student government. I am a freshman, and the first thing that I did when I got to campus was I joined student government. I kind of dived head in because I knew that that's where I wanted to be, and because this is a relatively new campus, I believe that through student government, students have the potential to actually create tangible change on campus because things are relatively new and it's possible to change things. I also believe that I have the energy, perseverance, and creativity needed to serve you all as the vice president of student government. I have a lot of ideas for what to do in the future, and I believe that a lot of them are long-scale things that could really benefit UT Dallas. For example, I think that this school could really benefit from a beautification initiative. There are a lot of places on campus that could benefit from a few murals or maybe some flowers, and I think that UT Dallas would really benefit from these things. Additionally, at UT Dallas, we currently only really have the plinth as a common space. And while that's great, I think that as a school that is growing, it is necessary that we have more places where our students can host events and do fun things. So a lot of my ideas kind of center around the idea of having more things for the community and having more sustainable projects that could increase school spirit and make everything better.
So again, hi, my name is William McKiernan, and I wanted to run because I have experience in leadership roles in various organizations, and I believe that experience and my passion for my school as well has prepared me to take on the role of vice president, and this is a role where I can serve the role of an advisory capacity instead of kind of boots on the ground senator position, and use the resources, outreach, and visibility that comes with the vice president position to further involve myself with the student body and get a better feel for what the students want and want to see out of student government, and put that experience and those opinions into action.
All right, this is a two-part question. What's something about this past administration that really worked, and what's something that didn't work?
Yeah, I think that one project that we implemented as a student government this year, that Alex and JW actually both spoke in favor of last year as part of our ticket when we ran in last year's elections, was the kind of onboarding, improving the onboarding process with student government. This year we brought in a new edition of student government binders. They're these nice black padfolios that Alex Holcomb kind of spearheaded as a project. They contain a lot of the useful information that senators need in order to function in a full capacity. A lot of times I think people who aren't directly involved in student government come into the organization with a lot of ideas and don't necessarily know the tools or the skills they need to put those actions into, or put those ideas into action. I think that these binders have served very well in kind of starting that process of creating a more formal transition period within student government. We've seen a lot of senators using those binders. They've become a part of our mandatory uniform. All senators are required to bring those, and they have information like the phone numbers and emails of important administration and contacts that we've established in the past. This serves to kind of use some of the projects and the connections we've established in the past and continue to build on those so that we continue moving forward as an organization. We don't lose things to the transition process, and we retain a lot of that organizational memory. One thing that I think that we have kind of slipped through the cracks, JW spoke about this last year, was the presidential brunches that the communications committee implemented. This was a project that was very well received, that we wanted to bring back, that hasn't come back to student government in this last year. That is a project that I would be interested in implementing, that we would make sure it gets done next year. This creates a medium of communication between our organizations and the presidents of other organizations, and gives us kind of a way of discussing ideas with them and getting them involved with us.
Okay. Thank you. And now, Your Voice ticket, you'll receive 2 minutes to respond to the question.
So, in my experience, one thing this administration was really good for and helpful for, especially as intern senator, was the accessibility of both the president and vice president offices. So I've had the president, JW, and the vice president, Alex. They invited me to meetings, and they had personal one-on-one follow-up times with me on projects I was having, questions I was having. They were very helpful. They were always there for me. I know that when I started running in this election, I texted JW and I just asked him, do you have a few minutes to talk? And right away he was like, yeah, these are my office hours. They're set every week. I'm available at these times. Come by whenever. And I think that is a very powerful position to put yourself in as a leader of such a large student body. And I think it was definitely one of the big things that allowed me to be successful in Senate. Now, regarding that, something I would like to improve or see improve next year in student government is individual senator accountability. So as a member of student government, there are several events that senators are encouraged or invited to attend, such as the fall and spring retreats, certain gatherings that the entire university puts on, certain meetings, and oftentimes we notice that senators, they would submit last-minute reasons for not attending, or they would just fail to respond at all as the reason for their absence. And I want to change that attitude within the Senate and within the student body, that student government is just some optional thing or it's a back burner priority. And I want to make it so that people understand that these events are important and they matter to the students and they matter to administration and they should be treated seriously.
And now the Catalyst ticket. You will have 1 minute to say your rebuttal.
Okay. As to Yilong's point about improving internal processes within student government, I definitely agree that there has to be an improvement in our systems for accountability within student government. I think that we have made strides in kind of addressing some of those problems, specifically in the establishment of a judicial board. Obviously, the judicial board has its issues, but I think that we are obviously making progress in those regards. But also, I'd kind of challenge you to expand some of the events or the vision for that idea. I think that it's important to also encourage senators to get in front of the student body as opposed to focusing kind of internally. It's important for senators to go to public events such as sporting events, campus spirit events such as Springapalooza that's going on right now. So that's kind of what I would say to. I would suggest that we expand some of those ideas.
So that was sort of similar to the idea I was trying to make. It's that there were instances where student government was invited to go to sporting events along with Fresh Crew or events organized by SWAB, and people sent out messages and asked people to sign up, and those sign-up sheets get passed around, and oftentimes nothing comes out of it. So I believe that it's nice to encourage senators to go out to these events, and it's very nice to think that they would do it, but there has to be more accountability within the student government itself, and especially with the administrative and executive power, president, vice president, to enforce those. And we do have an established judicial board. Thus far, I have not seen the judicial board really implement or execute anything. So perhaps that's something that also needs to be looked into.
And now, for the next question, how will you realistically achieve the goals of your administration?
So we have a lot of really experienced people on our ticket. So luckily, Eric and I have been able to talk to past vice presidents about how we can kind of work within the administration to get a lot of the projects that we want to see done. So all of the ideas that we have on our ticket, we've talked to a lot of people about how they could kind of be implemented, and we have plans as to how to start getting the ball rolling for a lot of them. I think that it's really important to have experience and to know the administrative process. And this year, for example, I have served on the Student Affairs Committee, and on the Student Affairs Committee, I've worked with dining services, Res Life, the Comment Card Office, the Counseling Center. So I think we've established a lot of connections with people in the administration that really helps in order to get these projects going. I also think that talking to Joey Campaign and Alex Holcomb, who both have been vice president of student government, has been really, really helpful, because sometimes I would bring up ideas and they'd be like, that's not possible. So their input has been really valuable because they know what can be done because they have been in this role before, and they've been really helpful as to speaking exactly what can be done, how we can do it fastest and most efficiently.
So our ticket's main platform is student outreach, and I have outlined a definite plan for how that is going to be implemented. So every year, at the beginning of the semesters, there are organization fairs. And these organization fairs are the prime time to pick out students that are active in the UT Dallas community and students that would be interested in working with student government. So we plan to send out student government delegates to these organization fairs to collect contact information and to gauge interest in how these organizations would work with student government. Following that, we would send out emails to the heads of these organizations. We have a certain number that we would send each week or every other week, and we would invite them to our Senate meetings, but more importantly, to our committee meetings, where the real work gets done. And therefore, these presidents of organizations, they can pass the message down to the people they lead, because they also lead a group of constituents in their own organization. And therefore, more and more people get notified of student government, and more people can come out and really get involved with the projects being done.
And now, 1 minute ago,
I think that right now student government waits for a lot of people to come to us with their ideas and to kind of speak about what they want to see better on campus. And while that's great and it's awesome that we are accessible and that we're always welcoming if people want to talk to us about what they want to see on campus, I think it's also important that we flip that around a bit. So I think we should be asking senators to go to sporting events, to go to spirit events, to go to like various organizations, chapters, and to talk about them, to be like, hello, I'm your senator, I'm your representative, I work on student government, could you please tell me about what you would like to see on campus, as opposed to always waiting for people to come to us, because while that's great, it's not always like super realistic as to waiting for a bunch of people to come to us and to tell us exactly what they want. But however, I think that through more outreach and through more visibility as to being like, you know, well known as to who exactly is your senator, who is serving our student government, and having those people going out to people and talking to them and reaching out, that can make it a lot easier to get various organizations' inputs and to make sure that we are representing the entire campus and what they want to see.
So that was actually the first half of the proposal I made, is that we do take the initial step to go out and talk to these bodies. I agree that is a very important step, but afterwards, it cannot always be student government who is seen desperately reaching out to people, and no progress is going to get done, and the voice of the student body is not going to get heard unless they meet us in the middle. So yes, it is important to meet with people first to sort of catalyze the process, if you will. But even more importantly, it's important to invite people to compromise, to meet us halfway, and to bring their own passions to what we're trying to accomplish.
All right, and for the next question, are there any projects or ideas that JW and Alex are currently working on that you wish to continue during your term?
Yeah, surely. So obviously a project that I've already kind of touched on, the President's Brunch. This was a project that was very well received when it was implemented in the spring of, I guess it was last year, so spring of 17. And so a lot of the clubs, the organization's presidents, their leadership really appreciated us taking that initial step. Another project that Alex has been working a lot on this semester, or this year, has been the Arts Initiative. For those of you who haven't seen it, there is a piano installed outside the Student Union, as well as a JSOM mural that will be coming, I believe by the end of the summer. But very soon, we've had a mural curated for the JSOM wall. For those of you who have been to JSOM, the south-facing wall, when you're facing JSOM from the parking lots, there will be a large mural of kind of like green and orange panels that will be installed there. So obviously these are two very tangible products of Alex's efforts in the Arts Initiative in this last year. This project has been very successful in this last year. It's a fairly new idea, and I think that we've gotten a lot of positive input on it, and that's why we as a Catalyze Ticket want to continue work on that project. Carla kind of spoke to some of our beautification ideas. We would want to expand the mural initiatives that we currently have. Some areas of improvement that we've identified are areas over by the Comic Cafe, as well as on the walls of buildings. The technology committee is actually working on a project to install kind of like techie art installments in the, I believe in the OIT department? Yeah, in the OIT office. And so those are a couple initiatives that we would definitely like to see come back because they've seen a lot of success in the past, and a lot of students have approached us about the positive impact that these projects have had on them and the campus.
So one thing that was mentioned earlier, as Eric said, was the student government binders that Alex Holcomb actually put in place, which have a ton of information for new senators to have at their hands to get involved and get started in student government. But there's always room for improvement in that power transition process, and especially this upcoming year, when so many senators are going to be new. We have very few returning senators. I think that's more crucial than ever. Hitting the ground running is very important to making sure that we maximize our efficiency. So one thing I would like to continue, and is something that's actually being proposed as a change to our bylaws, is holding the committee chairs accountable for filling out monthly reports on what projects have been brought to the table, what steps they've taken on them, who they've contacted, what the result of those contacts were, and putting it all together. And I would like to organize that all to start kind of an archive or a database of previous projects administrations have put on and new projects that we're starting, and make that public. Because I think one of the main things that helps inspire confidence in student government from the student body is having the student body be able to see what we're actually doing and what we are accomplishing, and establish a little bit of credibility there. So that is definitely one project I would like to continue.
So to address your point about establishing a mode of communication where we are communicating to the student body our progress on a month-to-month basis, we already somewhat have a system set up that's supposed to do that, but it doesn't really do its job very well. I think this is an issue that's very difficult to address when we, as the current chair of the communications committee, it's hard to communicate information to a student body when we haven't really set up the proper modes of communication yet. I think a lot of our social medias, this semester we've established a lot of regular posting schedules, and we've established more of a presence, but it's difficult when we don't have a very strong social media following. So we can put the information out there, but whether or not it's received is kind of, it's hard to say.
Yeah, that's a fair point, that if you have the information, it might not always reach the base, but I think starting with a strong foundation of putting that information together in an easy to access, easy to understand form is a great start. And that's also part of one of our goals with outreach, is to make sure that we're improving our outreach and our visibility by inviting these other organizations out, going to their events, communicating, doing our duty as senators and representatives to actually make sure we're going out and communicating what's happening in student government, which is something that I don't think has really been done in the past. And social media is great and effective, but it's only as effective as your following. So I think doing some kind of boots on the ground, personal, face-to-face would go a long way to helping us with that message.
How do you plan to hold yourself and the rest of student government accountable for the goals you've set and the expectations on student government?
I'll go ahead and answer this. So I think it's really important that we have more concrete deadlines as to when things should be done with student government. Right now, everyone kind of works on their own projects, which is great, but I think that it's important that every few weeks or maybe like a month, we have like a set deadline of you have to have certain progress by then, and really need to be able to speak onto what you've been doing, and if you're not where you should be, why that's been so. I think that's a really good way of holding people accountable. I think another good thing that we could do is utilize the judicial board more. I'm on the judicial board right now, and we meet like every now and then over GroupMe, but I think it's really important that we have the judicial board and we use it more often in order to like be able to hold senators accountable who are not making it to meetings where they should be or not making mandatory events. I think that by using the judicial board and by having like these concrete deadlines of when things should be done, we can make a lot of progress as to holding people accountable when they should be.
the currently existing system of attendance, the judicial board already exists, and it is great to think that the existing structures can hold people accountable, but the truth of the matter is they cannot, because at the end of the day, it's a person who has to tell someone up here, potentially even a friend of the same age group, that you're no longer part of this body, or like there are restrictions placed upon you. And I believe that there has to be a new system of attendance taken, perhaps a mandatory check-in at meetings instead of just like verbal attendance or eye glance attendance, because I have tracked that people have not been present, or I know that people have missed or they have violated the dress code, so to speak. And as far as I've seen, or as far as I've heard from them personally, they have received no consequence. And so it's not a matter of more utilizing the judicial board, it's examining the tenets of how the judicial board was created and perhaps revising them so that they work better in the future.
I totally agree with you that it can be revised to be more efficient, but I think that right now it still exists, it still has certain members, and I think it's just a matter of like making sure we have members on there who make sure they will hold other people accountable. You are right that there are people who are not at meetings when they should be, but I think that so far the judicial board this year could have done a better job of holding these people accountable for it. So I think that having more concrete outlines of, if you want to be on the judicial board, this is your responsibility, this is what you have to do, and we have to hold those people to it, and maybe even holding like the people on the judicial board accountable for being on the judicial board and making sure that they are doing like their roles and making sure that other people are at meetings when they should be there. I also think that the other side of having concrete deadlines is also a good idea. So having like people who are on executive board or the president and vice president checking in with like committee members, committee chairs, and making sure that the committee is making a certain amount of progress and that we actually are seeing progress happening all the time and people like complete their projects is also important.
I agree with you there on the points that you made on the judicial board, and perhaps those guidelines for senator attendance and senator consequences for lack of attendance are established in the bylaws, so perhaps those will have to be brought up for consideration and clarification where necessary. On the idea of concrete deadlines for projects, we sort of have that already. That is in the form of the bi-weekly committee meetings. It is the committee chair's responsibility to assign deadlines and to check in on progress with each of their senators and each committee. And the kind of problem with concrete deadlines is that different projects take different rates and they're highly variable. So from my experience, I'm currently working with Amazon to bring Amazon lockers to campus. And Amazon, being a very large company, they have a very fluctuating rate of return, contract negotiation, various administrative and business roles. It's difficult to pin down exact timelines for them, and doing so might hurt productivity.
All right, now, this question is specifically for the Your Voice ticket. Your platform is focused on increasing communication between the student population and the student government, while the Catalyze ticket appears to be more broad and focused. Why did you choose to focus your ticket only on one single issue?
You just said the Catalyze ticket is more broad and focused.
Yes.
That seems contradictory, if I understand that correctly. It's difficult to be broad and focused.
But why did you choose your ticket to only focus on one issue instead of their ticket that focuses on multiple issues?
Our ticket does not focus on only one issue. Our platform has 8 critical points that we're hoping to hit, and these include things from credibility to increased communication to accessibility, sustainability, and mental health and student body, more rights and activism. But our focus in naming the ticket Your Voice and in promoting this idea of communication with the student body is that a group of senators, our ticket, the student government alone, is not enough to effectively bring that change and to effectively put those projects into action on their own. Because in reality, there's no way that a group of 30 or 40 students can hope to encompass everything that a campus stands for. And so our ticket wanted to focus on empowering the people and getting more heads into student government, more ideas, and not necessarily in a senator's seat, but just people who can work with our senators and to bring them these ideas. And So I think it's not correct, and it is not our intention to only focus on one aspect, but it is our intention to focus on the principle that people make student government what it is, and once we have the right people in the right positions for the right jobs, then we can really start branching out into our other platform things.
This question is for the Catalyze ticket. Your platform is focused on a multitude of goals and large projects that will require a large amount of funding to produce, such as providing financial assistance to students over break. How do you plan on acquiring the funds to pursue these projects?
So I'm going to answer this. So right now, I think that the goal of student government, like Elon said, is to serve the students. And our platform does this in 3 ways: through sustainability, spirit, and community support. And the idea of community support kind of comes from making sure that we have access to equal resources on campus, no matter who we are. Which is why we have these ideas of like free STI testing on campus, more funding for organizations, more funding for graduate students to be able to attend professional conferences, funding over spring breaks for students, over breaks for students who are unable to travel back to their homes because they might live out of state and cannot necessarily afford the tickets to go back home. I think it's really important that we prioritize having these, and I think that these can easily be done through a reallocation of funds. Right now, student government has a pretty big budget, and I think that we could definitely use some of those funds to put aside a couple $100 or maybe even $1,000 to fund things like having Uber Eats being able to deliver food for students during breaks on campus. I have a friend who had to stay on campus over spring break because she couldn't afford tickets to go home, and she was like, she doesn't have a car either, and she was telling me that she had to eat raisins out of a cup, which is really sad. So I think that we should really make sure that through student government, we are making sure that everyone on campus has equal access to resources, and I think that's definitely possible to be done through meetings with administration, and making sure that we are reallocating funds in a certain way that we can use them most efficiently to make sure that everyone has access to the resources that they deserve and they need on campus.
How will you increase voter turnout for the election, which has been extremely low in the past?
Yeah, so one way that we as a ticket have been addressing that is just coming up with kind of fresh ways to market our ticket on varying platforms. For those of you who haven't seen it, Catalyze just dropped their temporary Facebook profile frames on Monday on Facebook. So if you find any of the posts of any of our senators or our supporters, you can just click try it, and Facebook allows you to just put a temporary Facebook profile frame showing your support for our ticket on that medium. So coming up with kind of new ideas to reach people and simple ways for people to kind of incorporate our brand into their social medias or their day-to-day operations. We're also pursuing avenues such as flyers, but the majority of our marketing is done online this year. We felt like this kind of fits into our vision for sustainability as well. The usage of flyers, obviously, a lot of them go to waste or recycling, hopefully, once they're used. But putting our platform items online, especially on our website and on our Facebook page, in a presentable way, in a digestible way for students who might not be as involved with student government yet to understand our platform items, I think it's going to help bridge that gap between the candidates in the past, our candidates, and the student body to increase turnout this year. Furthermore, I think that as a whole, the quality of our platform item obviously helps drive voter turnout. Our 3 platform ideas are kind of driven behind the idea of affecting the most important problems to UTD students, making sure that we're addressing the problems of all UTD students, and making sure that our solutions affect students for the longest period possible, making sure that those projects are sustainable and that they're around to stay and affect future students to come.
Increasing voter turnout it can't happen overnight. It's definitely a process. There are things that we are striving to do, and obviously their ticket is striving to do now, today, and in the following week and a half to spread the word and let everybody know that this is happening and try to encourage people to vote and take an interest. But at the end of the day, people are only going to vote if they want to vote, and changing someone's intrinsic interest is something, like I said, that can't happen overnight. So the responsibility falls to us to make sure that we follow through on the promises that we've made and the projects that we put forth, and not just you, and I, Eric and Carla, whoever wins, to establish some more trust and credibility in student government and show that we can follow through on what we say that we're going to follow through, and to show them that we listen and you can have a change in student government, and by doing that and establishing a little bit more trust in the organization itself, people will take a more personal interest in it and be more willing to vote. And so hopefully that we can start this year to set a good foundation to increase voter turnout exponentially over the coming years.
So as sort of rebuttal to that, I think that an additional way that we can help boost voter turnout, currently the way our election system is set up is a bit convoluted. A lot of people don't quite understand how our election works, that each position is voted on individually. So it's entirely possible that a presidential candidate from one ticket could be elected and the vice presidential candidate from another ticket could be elected. A lot of these things need to be clarified, and I think one way to address that is to extend the campaign process. Right now, we are working on a very tight schedule. Filing only opened February 26th. That gives us about a month's time to assemble our ticket, develop our platform, start campaigning and get the voting done and have the results. This also is a tight timeline for other organizations to reach out to us to help us market. So if we could extend that timeline to create a larger opportunity for people to engage with us, I think that would increase the voter turnout.
Yeah, I agree. A longer period is something that I think has been proposed in the new constitution changes coming up, extending it from 4 weeks to about 7 weeks, making sure that more people have more time to flesh everything out and spread information and get the word out. Another change that has been proposed that I think would be beneficial is making student government less self-inclusive, and we are actually proposing changes to open up the ability to run for president or vice president to the student body. The stipulation that you have to serve at least a semester or 2 semesters on student government could potentially be removed, and I think that honestly that would be beneficial, so that people who have an interest but haven't had the ability to be in student government can run and try to implement their vision for change. And I think that letting people know that anybody can run, anybody can influence this change would help also increase voter turnout.
Now the candidates will answer some Twitter questions.
How do you want these Twitter questions answered? Are they going to be sent to you and you're going to read them off to us?
Beautiful weather we're having.
While we're pulling these up, do you want to just invite the audience to ask us any short questions that they might have off the top of their head? I mean, I'm sure we'd be willing to answer questions.
So, the first question, what will make your administration different from the present one?
So I think Catalyze, and I've already kind of spoken on a couple of the ways that we'll be bringing changes and improvements to the current processes. I think one way that will be different, while Elon kind of explained how right now student government president and vice president have kind of an open door policy, and that they're welcoming of people's input. I think that one big change that Catalyze is going to change is that we want to take the initiative. That was kind of part of the spirit behind the name Catalyze, we wanted to take a lot of the processes that student government has right now and turn them into something kind of completely new by the end of the year. And that's one of the things that we do kind of want to turn on its head and completely flip. We want to be the ones reaching out to organizations. We want to be present at their meetings, and we want to be the ones coordinating the communication between us and the student body. I think it's very obvious in the current engagement with between student government and the student body that what we're doing right now isn't working. That's one big part of the Catalyze Ticket's vision for changing student government right now. We want to reach out to you guys, and we think that the only way to do that is to take the responsibility onto us, and for us to take that first step and get in the door with you guys and be the faces of student government at your meetings.
So the way our administration hopes to change different than those before it is that not only are we, like Eric said, the idea of going out and reaching out to people, but also inviting them to reach back out to us. Because currently, with the current model and that proposed model, a lot of it sounds like going out, talking to student groups, the student body, and then just taking ideas, coming back and tinkering with them in a vacuum, which is how student government has operated for the past year, how it's sort of always operated. And ideas in a vacuum never quite come out the way that the student body wants them to. And so the way it works is that a student brings an idea, or we go out and we collect the idea from the student, but then we take it back and we don't follow up on it. We just work with how we think it should be done, and we take what the student said and maybe like a 30-second conversation, and we just do with it what we think that they want. And the product comes out, and often it's dissatisfactory, and there's a divide between the student body, student government, and the expectations and the realities set upon the project. And so we believe a fundamental way to change that is to really let students know how the project is being worked on. It means sending out emails every week, letting them know this update happened, this update happened. There's a meeting, and we're meeting with administration. Normally, administrative meetings are between senators, the president or vice president, and the member of administration. But we want to invite ordinary students, not students necessarily in student government. We want to invite the student body. We want to invite you to those kind of meetings to make you feel like your voice is being heard, and that it's not just being delivered, or it's not just being telegraphed by a third party. It's that you bring your concerns directly to the people in charge of seeing them put into action.
Would you guys like a rebuttal for these three questions?
No, we're not.
Alright, in my experience, not many students recognize our student government representatives. As newly elected president and vice president, what will you do to acquaint yourself with the student body and vice versa?
Right, so I think a lot of the things that we've kind of already spoken about today speak to this a little bit. A lot of the outreach we were doing is kind of person-to-person outreach, going to these organizational events, inviting organizations to come see us, and then partnering with them, not just going to their meetings, but any kind of big event they put on, like philanthropy event, something like that, where we can show ourselves and be visible. The nice thing about being in the president and vice president position is that there is time built into that position for you to be on campus and do student government work. So using that time effectively to make ourselves available, go out and attend these meetings and these events is definitely a way that I think we can make ourselves more recognized and more visible.
I know Eric spoke a bit about this during the last answer that he delivered, but I think that throughout this election process, our ticket has been doing a really great job of going out to organizations and being like, hello, we are with student government. We're really interested to hear as to what you would like to see on campus, and really getting their input as to what they think we could be doing better as student government. And it was surprising and a little bit shocking how many of these organizations were like, oh my goodness, like student government has never reached out to us before, and they had so many ideas and things that they just wanted to put out there. I think it's really important that we continue doing this in the future. And while you're right that right now we are like waiting for people to come to us and we are reaching out to them a bit, we are definitely not reaching out to them nearly enough. I think it's important that we continue to go to like sport events, spirit events. We've been going to like chapters for various organizations, and the response that we've been getting from these organizations has been amazing. And they're so ready to be engaged, and they have so much that they want to contribute to us. It's just that we haven't been asking them enough. So I think that the reason that I am running for vice president is because I want to give this position my all. And as your representative, I would be ready to be going to these organizations and to be reaching out to people to make sure that I know what you all want and that I can like accurately represent that.
Beyond beautification measures, what do you hope to be the concrete legacy of student government under your administration?
So one of the points of our ticket in increasing communication and following up, like other members of the debate have said, following up on the projects we make during our campaign is that student government is currently variable in its credibility. If you go out and ask people, they will either remember a good administration or a bad administration, and based on that, it drastically shapes whether or not they will look to student government for solutions, for ideas, or whether you go up to someone and say student government, and they look at you and they say, yeah, they meet once a week, they don't do anything. So a lot of what we hope is our lasting legacy through this administration is creating a very credible, a very reputable student government so that no organization should go throughout the semester without having student government come check in with them or knowing their student government representative. That no administrator ever has a bad dealing with student government and says, I don't want to work with them, that project off limits, and that we don't have to tell senators like, oh, that's not going to happen because administration doesn't like this facet of how we operate. And so it's increasing that credibility between the student body and between administration so that in the future to come, students are more comfortable coming out to us with ideas, and administration is more eager and ready to work with us to implement them.
Yeah, a huge part of the Catalyze Tickets platform is obviously community support, and a portion of that is our transparency and our communication with the student body. I think the legacy that our ticket wants to leave, and that Carla and I want to leave on this campus, is for people to look back at student government and to be able to pinpoint tangible projects, tangible products that we have implemented and that we've left on this campus. A lot of these things, a lot of times with student government, our directive kind of limits us. A lot of us want to see spirit promoted on this campus, but it's not necessarily within student government's directive to throw pep rallies or something, or to throw big events that bring musical artists. But I think that we do fit a very niche role, especially in the arts and beautification initiatives, but past that, just continuing to bring that vision for tangible products to other projects. Obviously, if we bring a piano to campus, there's no way that piano is there for, I mean, I guess not forever, but as long as it lasts, and it's something tangible that people can look at and identify as something that student government has done, and bringing that vision to other projects and other fields, I think is going to leave a lasting legacy that people can see on campus. It's going to help student government create that reputation that we're looking for with other organizations, and reinstill that confidence that people have in student government to create lasting change on campus.
All right, those are all the Twitter questions we have, but we would like to open the discussion to the students present and have them ask the candidates questions if they have them.
Over here. What is your top priority project for campus improvement? Like the actual project itself would be the first thing you do.
As far as campus improvement,
Yeah, like something you're going to do on campus, like one of the projects you're talking about.
So my favorite project from our ticket surrounds the idea of common space. As I mentioned before, that right now we have the Plinth, and that's great. We have so many philanthropy events, and like there's music always playing at the Plinth, and people are having a lot of fun. But as a growing campus, it's really important that we have more than just the Plinth as a common space. One of my best friends goes to Duke University, and he was telling me about this tent that fits about like 40 people that Duke student government recently bought for $2,000 to $3,000, and they installed it on like a big grass field to serve as a additional common space. And the response that they've gotten from students and how much it's been used by students has been incredible. I think that UT Dallas can really benefit from more common spaces. There's an area behind JSON that has a lot of grass. It looks like something should go there, but there's not anything there at the moment. I think that we could really benefit from something really similar to what Duke did, to have more areas for organizations to host their events. Because right now, if you want the plinth, it's booked like a few weeks or even months in advance, and it's really not accessible for all organizations. So I think it's really important that as student government, we could do something this large that organizations could use and everybody could benefit from.
Another project to kind of add on to that, we have these two projects on our website, as well as the Common Space project, our EcoCoin and our Freshman Bike projects. So these are kind of ideas that I wanted to implement with the EcoCoin project. This is a project that was kind of repurposed from UT Austin. Right now, for those of you who have been to the dining hall, they have kind of green reusable eco boxes that are available to students who are trying to take food out of the dining hall. And I believe you pay $5 for each use, but it's something along those lines, but the usage is fairly limited right now. The EcoCoin project at UT Austin expands this project to the majority of their dining services on campus. Essentially, students can purchase an EcoCoin, which is just a little wooden coin with like our insignia on it that represents that shows that they've purchased the usage of these green eco boxes. And if we could expand these eco boxes to be available at other dining services, we can really expand the usage of these products. So again, kind of a tangible product that we can leave on campus. You buy the EcoCoin once and you exchange the coin for a box at the dining services or whatever restaurant, food place that you're eating at, and they give you a box, and essentially at UT Dallas they actually implement a 5% discount, I believe, on your meal, which could be a great incentive to incentivize people to be eating sustainably using sustainable materials as opposed to disposable boxes.